Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kranthi Vistakula. Today I am going to talk about how we need to unlearn to innovate. Mostly how a caterpillar goes into a shell, rethinks, and comes out with bright colors. We need to unlearn what we have learned till date, and our thinking process has to change to innovate. So, when I say why tires, when will we think? When I say that I will make square tires, what do you think of me? We'll start thinking this guy is a nut, this guy is useless, why is he thinking he's going to make square tires? But when I say square tires, what thought comes into your mind? That there will be a lot of friction. If I have a square tire, I'll not be able to locomote very freely. There are so many problems having a square tire. But when I'm actually traveling on ice, I need a square tire. I cannot have it round because the efficiency goes down. But what this tells us that as soon as we are bound by boundaries. When I speak something, or when I tell something, or when we think of something, we immediately relate ourselves to a lot of boundaries, and we start thinking in those boundaries. And we need to think beyond those boundaries to innovate. For example, you might have thought when I tell the road was, you actually thought only of one thing, round square tire cannot rotate. You didn't think of any other factor other than that, what surface I'm using, what kind of vehicle, which location. So we have to start thinking beyond boundaries to innovate. This is one thing which I would like to change in India, is because all our school kids are taught a lot of books, a lot of reading goes on in education. And we are absolutely taught that whatever is in the book is 100% right, and this is what you need to follow. In most of the schools, when children are taught and we think something, do something differently, they are punished. So creativity is snapped at a very young age, and we are taught that we were never taught to question why Pythagoras theorem is always right, or why Newton was right, or why Einstein is right, or is there any other dimension other than this. Until Einstein came, we all thought was apple would only fall down, and Newton's laws were the laws of the planet. But Einstein came and said, like, we should not think in reference, we should start thinking in reference. Today, we take everything for granted. Every unit that comes, we take it for granted. For example, when I say time, time is only a point of reference. We take time so absolutely in our life, but we forget that time is just a reference point that is there. And all the units, like power, which are related to time, are only a reference points, which we do not take. So right from the education, when we start educating as a child, we tell the child to learn this. We don't tell him why is it used everywhere. Why can't this be applied? For example, we all have learned, especially engineers have learned partial differential equations. And I'm sure everyone will tell me, if I ask you a formula, they will tell me partial differential equations. But thinking beyond why partial differential applications was initially developed, what was the point why it was developed, that is not taught in our schools. I think that is where, when these kind of things are taught in our schools, then we will start using education as a tool, but not guidelines of our life. What the society has been doing to us is, we are grooming a lot of people up to be employees in a certain company or to do certain points of work. But we have to teach them that it's not the books, or it's not what you are meant to do. It's all about what your passion is about, and what you can do and what you want to do. And speaking about passion, there are many kinds of passion that comes in people. One passion directly that comes from heart, one passion that comes from frustration. So if you are doing anything, it should not be out of frustration, but out of complete passion. Then only you will understand the true meaning of education. When you start something new, everyone will treat you as a fool. I mean, I am sure when I started developing my jacket, I went to my professor at MIT and I said that this is what I'm planning to do. It's like, he just said, this is thermodynamically impossible. What you're trying to do is thermodynamically impossible, because there are so many parameters, there are so many conditions. And when I wore my first jacket and went to the class, people looked at me like as I was a fool who was standing there. And there are many examples where people who are treated as fool end up being the superstars. And Einstein was a mediocre patent officer sitting in a patent office in Sweden where he was not even treated well. But after he made up his theory, then everyone brought him to light, and he got a Nobel Prize for not his theory of relativity, but its photoelectricity. And this foolishness comes of attitude rather than anything else, rather than knowledge or talent. For example, India is a country filled with tremendous talent. We have talent everywhere. But the thing that is lacking in India is group intelligence. We, as an individual, are very talented. As a group, we fail to deliver because our egos come into place. I'll just give you a simple example how we don't think one step ahead. I think everyone who had taken a flight or has traveled, as soon as the flight stops, you see people rushing and standing up and like trying to pull the luggage. But what is the point of standing up? The whole aim of it is for you to get out the airport. But if you know that there is a bus standing outside, you have to go queue up in the bus. Then next you have to know that your luggage is waiting. But you see everyone rushing and pulling their luggage, pushing each other. And there is an ad for Reliance which says that India people are hurry. But what is the point? Why aren't we taught that we should start thinking one step ahead? When you start thinking one step ahead, then you realize the actual potential of the problem. You start planning very well. And again, another point of attitude is basically how do you deal with the current situation or the scenario you are in. I have borrowed this example from someone. One day there was a convocation event going on in Varanasi University. So the chancellor, being the king, was invited to speak. So the chancellor started speaking in English, and everyone, people in the back started making noise that you are a king, you don't have culture, this, that. And rather than the king continuing, he stopped. And he started his whole speech in Sanskrit. None of the students in the back were able to understand what he was doing. He took those students on the same turf, but that shows his attitude. How you have to fight in the same scenario and take people in their own turf. That is when you will succeed and innovate. So we keep on going examples like this. How I can keep on going example. I can give one example. Like we clean our houses and we throw dust right out of the house, not knowing that the dust will come tomorrow in our house tomorrow. So why we are not having the group intelligence? What is lacking? I think that has to be brought through education right from childhood. When I was a kid, there was a subject called moral science. I don't think now that is existing in any books. Why aren't we taught moral science and society science while growing up? I mean, that is the key to innovate rather than learning from highly evolved mathematical books or things. You have to learn to live in a society. Basically, other thing which we don't realize is what is the value of communication and group work. You can see the American marketing has become the, I can give you an example when I think there was an earthquake in San Francisco, and within hours people were selling t-shirts of the San Francisco earthquake and people were making money. That was how the current communication is going on, or how the teamwork in the US is going on, because people in the US actually are other developed countries. The difference between developed country and the developing country is we are talented, we don't act as group. The developed country are less talented, but they act as a group. And it can be clearly seen in nature. I can give you hundreds of examples that happen in nature where nature is well balanced, where everything goes in cycle, nothing goes for waste. Other examples. And as to start any company or to start any initiative, first you have to start acting as a group rather than individual. The day you say that this is my idea, then the whole point of the idea goes down, because it is our idea which will bring it forward. I have a company which we have around 20 people working in our company. I put my team on the topmost priority and my idea is the last, because without a team that is there to execute your idea is useless, because this is the people who will execute your idea who will take it to further. So I think people should be given more value, and rather than using as resources, we should use them put them as leaders up there. And ants do it every day. They can break mountains, they can kill a snake which is 100 times more size than them. So now I'll just slightly speak about my innovation and what was my experience in innovation. So I worked on a NASA project where I was one day sitting in class, and I had to write a project. I did not know what to do, and I was like, I could have easily come up. I was thinking, and I was holding a pen, and I was thinking, how am I able to feel the pen? Which means there is a protein in my body which is able to convert that mechanical energy into electrical energy, and that is detected by your body. Then I said, why can't we use these proteins to harvest energy? I mean, these proteins have a capability of sensing piconewtons of force. They're very accurate. Nature has been using them for, I don't know, billions of years. Bacteria have highly evolved proteins than humans. We humans, this is my personal perception, a tiger will not kill a human because the amount of energy it gets eating a human is far less than it killing a deer or something, because we humans have only brain, nothing else. Then we don't have muscle, we don't have body, we cannot run. We only have brain. Do you know why humans are like what made a difference? We humans are a mistake in nature. When monkeys were evolving, you see this jawbone goes and attaches to your skull. So when it decides the bite force. So for animals have a very strong bite force, which means they bite stronger, so your muscle has to be stronger. So it goes and pressurizes your skull. So it restricts your brain to grow. So there was a genetic mutation in your this jawbone muscle, which made your muscle weak. So you started losing the bite force, which started expanding your brain. So you started getting more brain power, and we started losing all other aspects of muscle and everything. Only our brain took over, and the brain has become the CPU of our body. So, in fact, we are a mistake in nature. But I think we think we are the leaders of the nature, and we control. We talk about balance, all that stuff. But we have to realize where we stand and what we are. So, coming back to the example, I decided that why can't we use these proteins, which nature has developed to perfection, to harvest energy. So we make a prototype. We took a protein from the ear called Preston. When I'm speaking, the way you are hearing is there is a protein in your ear called Preston, which actually vibrates at the frequency which I'm speaking and converts that energy into electrical energy. So we actually used that proteins and made a model, and we actually developed a concept for Mars space station, and we went up to proof of concept. I think this project had to be scrapped because Bush said that no more life sciences project. We will send humans to moon. So we had to scrap this, and I moved on to developing another work. So this actually came out of my personal problem. I used to feel very hot always. I mean, like I used to be very comfortable with minus 30 degrees centigrade. If it's very hot, I could not take it. In Boston, my dormitory was around half a kilometer from my classes. And being Indian, I'm extremely lazy, so I always used to miss the bus. So I never used to make the bus in time. So I had to put 3-4 layers on and go to a class which was heated up to 24-25 degrees centigrade. And I had to take all those layers off and put, sit in the class and go to a next class. I had to go to the next building. So I had to put all those layers on and just start walking. And that extremely annoyed me because I was lazy. To actually cover up my laziness, I wanted to make a jacket which would make me, I could control the temperature. So this was in 2005, where a lot of terrorist activity was going on and stuff. So what I used to do is, like, I used to have a fan with a water chiller, and we had chiller, and I used to circulate that hole through my body and go to class with that. And people used to think, like, this fool is going to blow us up all one day. So they used to look at me. Thankfully, I did not have a beard or a cap. So if I had a beard or a cap, I would have been shot. But then I realized the whole point of having a jacket, which is 5 kg in weight, was more uncomfortable to me than rather than comforting. Then I said, how can I learn? How can I innovate? Then the basic thing that came to my knowledge was what I've read in my 7th class book, was Peltier effect, and which everyone have studied in our Peltier effect in our high school, and we tend to forget it. Then I said that why can't I use it and make a system? So what I did was I was doing a PCR experiment. PCR is polymerase chain reaction, where you replicate DNA and try to make new genes and stuff. So how this works is basically what you do is you have a DNA which is double helix. You give it heat, it breaks up, and you take away heat, it joins up. Then I said, like, this is a very good idea how I can dissipate heat, how I can remove heat. So what I did was I started developing a new material through which I can break hydrogen bonds to dissipate energy. So I had converted that 6 kg jacket into around 1 kg jacket, where the biggest challenge of any, to give it a perspective, the biggest challenge of any cooling system is basically if the room is this cold, there is a huge fan and a huge compressor that is making you cold. But I cannot have that on the body. I need to have a very small heat sink or some sort of heat device which will dissipate heat very effectively. So I went back to nature, learned a lot of things. I learned from waking from a lizard that drinks to its food, and DNA, how DNA can be used. So we made a technology that can be incorporated into any apparel so that the jacket becomes only weight of a jeans. I have a jacket which goes to temperature, which can operate in a temperature anywhere from -50 to +50 and maintain 24 degrees centigrade no matter what. It's around 650 grams, which is equivalent to the weight of jeans. So then we said, does this end here? I mean, I have something which we need to do. So then I started thinking of different applications. How can, because having a technology and a product doesn't mean that you have a product. This society has become, as other students, this society has become a marketing society rather than the best product winning society. So I had to innovate in my product, marketing and innovating new products. So what we did was, like, first thing I thought was, we humans need our brain. So if our brain is very cold, then we perform more effectively. So if you see your neck is always hot, so we thought that is actually your neck is the radiator for your brain. We said that we'll make a neck scarf, basically that will cool your neck, so that your neck is always comfortable and your productivity goes up. And then we kept on innovating in different fields. How we can, we looked at day-to-day applications. Our team is so, what I've been developing in my company is a culture rather than the innovation or idea. Our team works like, we have a marketing team, we have all sorts of team, but we all work together as a family. We play cricket in the evening at 5 o'clock, come back to office, work, and like everyone contributes. Even our tailor contributes in idea because he knows exactly what his problems are. Then we went on innovating into, diversifying into medical products and all kinds of stuff, which later happened. But what I wanted to say is that what we have created is a platform that can be applied to, as a soul, it can be applied to multiple different products. So our technology takes up a new body and comes up a new solution. And basically then we moved on to different applications like having a plate which keeps your food always hot or cold. And actually we put our jacket on cows because cows give more milk when they're cool. So in summer, cows yield less milk. So we put them on jackets so they were yielding 2 kilos more milk. Then we thought of traditional applications such as like a lot of infant deaths happen because of improper thermal care for neonatal babies and stuff. So our team is constantly working on developing new technologies and stuff. We have actually made a product which can, technology that I can cool to -13.5 degrees centigrade in 4 seconds and cool to 100 degrees centigrade within next 4 seconds. I can flip from -13 to +100 within 4 seconds. We have different applications and stuff. With this, I want to leave certain points that we need to think is like for it to innovate, is we have to first start thinking beyond boundaries and existing connections. The day you think beyond boundaries and you restrict yourself, then you will not innovate. And persistence. I was told 100 times that this is not possible. And that made me much more stronger that I have to do it, because if I don't do it, then I'm useless. I mean, what's the point? You can learn a lot from nature. See, nature, we just pass away, but once you start looking at the nature, you can actually learn a lot of things. So I think we should learn from nature and try to imprint, because nature is adapting and nature has been evolving because survival of the fittest happens. I think that actually fits in India, because who has the might and power actually goes in traffic in India. Who has the might and power goes in front of you, because a bus always tries to push you in the corner. He has the might, so he has the survival of right of way. So, and we have to be a global player in India. The reason why I have come to India, and I was offered many jobs in the US. I was actually placed at McKinsey and Company, where I used to get $150,000. I said, like, I have to come back to India and start a company which will lead revolution or technology through India. So I want it to be an Indian company. And that can only happen when we start thinking as a group rather than individual. So I say the final point I leave it is like, let's start acting as a group rather than individual and take India much more further.